April 12, 1944, 3:30 a.m. Somewhere near the Ardennes forest, Belgium. The night hung heavy with mist and tension. Each breath of cold air a reminder that death could be hiding behind every tree, every shadow. Captain Robert "Rob" Hensley crouched behind the shattered wall of a bombed-out farmhouse, listening intently. Every footstep, every rustle of leaves, every distant echo of artillery carried information that his brain had to process instantly. This was not just a battle of weapons, it was a battlefield for the mind itself. Hensley had led platoons across North Africa, Italy, and now the European front. He understood instinctively that decisions in combat were biological, chemical, and neurological. The human brain under extreme stress transforms into a high-speed processor, weighing risk and reward, friend and foe, life and death, in fractions of a second. Tonight, that processor would be tested beyond any ordinary measure. The mission was clear yet perilous. Advance through the Ardennes, secure a strategic bridge, and gather intelligence on enemy positions. Each second demanded more than physical endurance. It demanded perfect mental calculation. Soldiers relied not only on their training, but on the invisible mechanisms of their minds. The amygdala signaling fear, the prefrontal cortex evaluating consequences, the hippocampus recalling lessons learned from previous encounters. At 3:42, a twig snapped nearby. Hensley's heart skipped. Time seemed to dilate. The milliseconds stretched. His brain initiated a cascade of automatic yet deliberate decisions. Freeze. Assess. Act. His eyes, trained to operate in near darkness, detected a shadow along the trench line. He signaled his men with a practiced hand gesture. Weapons raised, adrenaline pumping, neurons firing at lightning speed. This was the paradox of warfare. The brain had to function optimally while under extreme duress. One hesitation could cost lives. One misjudgment could compromise the entire operation. Hensley had read post-war analyses on stress, adrenaline, and human cognition. Now, theory collided with reality in the Ardennes. Tracer rounds suddenly streaked across the fog. Enemy machine guns had pinpointed their location. The deafening staccato of bullets striking stone and wood amplified the primal urgency of survival. Instinct took over. Soldiers dived, rolled, and returned fire. Hensley entered a flow state, a cognitive phenomenon where heightened awareness, muscle memory, and rapid decision-making merged seamlessly. The battlefield forced the brain to operate simultaneously on multiple levels: primal instinct for survival, analytical assessment for tactical advantage, and learned intuition shaped by countless prior engagements. Experience, it turned out, was encoded in neural circuits. Patterns emerged from chaos. Hensley's mind ran simulations in microseconds. If I move here, then the sniper's line of sight is blocked. If I suppress fire on the left, then we can cross the open field. Every calculation drew on memory, perception, and prediction. Minutes later, the platoon reached the river. Ahead lay a bridge, guarded by heavy enemy fire. Time was running out. Hensley's brain assessed conflicting data. Scouts reported strong resistance. Artillery shells were predicted to land on the far bank in 5 minutes. Men were exhausted and injured. The fight-or-flight mechanism surged, yet he had to inhibit pure reflex and engage the prefrontal cortex to plan and commit to a rational course of action. He shouted orders, carefully chosen words to structure chaos, focus attention, and synchronize action. Speech under extreme stress is not incidental. It is a neurological tool for shared cognition. "Cover the left flank! Suppress fire! On my mark! Sprint!" he commanded. The words were both shield and strategy, binding the group into a coherent unit. When the signal came, the soldiers leapt across the bridge. Bullets tore the night, splinters flew, and the wooden structure trembled. The brain had to coordinate motor functions under lethal conditions, integrating visual input, muscle memory, and instinctual reactions. Each man was a living network of neurons responding to life or death stimuli. By dawn, the bridge was secured. Casualties were taken, but the mission succeeded. Hensley understood that their survival was not luck, it was cognition in action. Thousands of decisions made in milliseconds, some conscious, some automatic, had determined the outcome. The battlefield was as much about neural computation as it was about physical courage. In the following days, Hensley observed patterns in his men's behavior. Some froze under fire, paralyzed by fear. Others acted impulsively, reckless yet effective. A few thrived, performing split-second calculations that saved lives. Each response illuminated the architecture of the human mind under extreme stress, a convergence of evolution, training, and experience. Hensley reflected on the chemical mechanisms at play. Adrenaline surged through every vein, enhancing reflexes and narrowing attention, while cortisol regulated long-term decision-making and memory consolidation. The brain's survival circuits suppressed irrelevant input, prioritizing immediate threats. This biochemical orchestra allowed soldiers to function under conditions that would incapacitate civilians. Later, Hensley faced another dilemma, crossing a minefield to reach the next objective. The field had been mapped, but intelligence was incomplete. His brain evaluated probabilities, weighed potential losses, and integrated instinct with logic. Each step required a micro-decision. Left foot or right? Probe with bayonet or step carefully? Signal the squad or proceed silently? In these moments, conscious thought was augmented by tacit knowledge, the embodied memory of past operations, encoded into neural pathways by repetition and experience. During a reconnaissance patrol, Hensley noticed a young private trembling. The boy's prefrontal cortex, still immature, struggled to override the amygdala's fear signals. Hensley guided him, showing how practiced routines could transform panic into controlled action. This mentoring was not just tactical, it was neurological training, teaching the young soldier how to harness the brain's natural responses. Combat also forced moral cognition to the forefront. Decisions were never purely tactical. They carried ethical weight. The brain's orbitofrontal cortex, responsible for moral reasoning, became active under stress. Hensley had to decide whether to risk men's lives to secure intelligence that could save thousands. Such decisions fused emotion, logic, and prediction, illustrating that the mind in war is a network of overlapping, sometimes conflicting systems. Weeks later, during an intense artillery bombardment, Hensley experienced what scientists would later call tunnel vision. Sensory input narrowed, focusing attention on immediate threats. Peripheral information faded. The hippocampus cataloged these moments for memory, while the prefrontal cortex simulated possible outcomes of every choice. Soldiers often reported these periods as a strange suspension of time, where decisions seemed almost preordained. Neurobiology now explains this as a combination of heightened temporal perception and accelerated cognitive processing under extreme stress. The Ardennes campaign stretched Hensley and his men to their limits. Nights spent under fire, days spent navigating terrain riddled with traps, constant vigilance, all shaped their cognitive architecture. Those who adapted mentally survived. Those who could not were casualties of the mind as much as of the battlefield. Hensley later described these experiences in letters and post-war memoirs, how decisions came in flashes, how intuition was inseparable from experience, how fear could both paralyze and sharpen judgment. Modern neuroscience confirms these phenomena. The brain's decision-making under extreme stress is a dynamic interaction of emotion, memory, instinct, and rational calculation. Survival depends on the integration of all these systems. By 1945, Hensley had led dozens of missions, each a crucible of cognition. He understood that leadership was about managing not just strategy and tactics, but the mental states of his men. Each order, each signal, each word spoken in the field influenced neural processing, shaping decisions in real time. The battlefield was a laboratory of the mind, a place where the architecture of thought was tested against mortality itself. The campaign concluded, but the lessons endured. Hensley would spend years studying how the human brain navigates life and death scenarios, applying insights to training programs, post-traumatic recovery, and leadership development. He knew, as do modern neuroscientists, that decision-making in war is not a simple act. It is a symphony of neural processes, finely tuned by evolution, experience, and circumstance. The mind, in the crucible of combat, reveals its ultimate power and fragility. It adapts, calculates, predicts, and survives. It reacts before conscious thought, yet it also learns from the consequences of its actions. In every firefight, every ambush, every tense decision on the front lines, The brain is the true battlefield, determining the line between life and death, success and failure. By examining these processes, we gain insight not only into war, but into human nature itself. The same cognitive machinery that enables survival under fire also underpins daily decisions, problem-solving, and creativity. Stress amplifies perception, experience shapes intuition, and courage is, at its core, a neurological phenomenon, a decision made in the interplay of fear, calculation, and hope. Hensley's story is not merely about bullets and strategy, it is about the extraordinary capacities of the human mind. It is a chronicle of how neurons, synapses, and circuits converge to guide decisions under conditions that test the limits of endurance. In every act of courage, in every split-second calculation, the mind proves its resilience, its adaptability, and its indispensable role in the theater of war.